information on it. Could you walk us through this a little bit, Jason?
Okay, yeah, and that's just with today's environment, you do have a lot of call centers where agents sort of were thrown into being remote agents just out of necessity. And so one thing you do find sometimes is data literacy in contact centers is not high, and that really doesn't have to do with maybe the staffing of people, but just the time that you have within contact centers to manage people, manage activities, et cetera. You have to have data that is pointed and that gives you sort of inferences into actions to be taken, just because you don't have the luxury of time. And so even though in contact centers, they consume a lot of reporting, a lot of that is just sort of high level reporting on where you are now, whether it's, say, good or bad, green light, red light, yellow light, but not much past that. And one thing you also don't have the luxury of now is, as far as a quote unquote good supervisor, good manager, you could embed yourself. You did see a trend where a lot of supervisors and managers were getting sort of iPads or tablet devices so that instead of being at their desk, they could embed themselves in the team environment that gave them a feel of what was going on and how do you manage, optimize performance, et cetera. You don't have that a lot now because people are virtual. And so you really do have to have a better penchant for saying, what are the numbers telling me? How do I translate the numbers into performance indicators on what is happening, what is being said, what's being entered into computers, et cetera, to say that I can benchmark and optimize performance without a view, without having access to agents. And I think as that happens more, the data that you deliver to supervisors, managers, directors is more important because they have to be able to manage people based on the numbers, not based on what they're actually viewing, what they're doing at the time.
So this means because we're now a hybrid or all remote, that I just can't depend on walking out onto the floor to see what my agents are doing. I really need to pay attention to the numbers. And secondly, the numbers really have to be presented in a way that tells me what to do. I really have to understand what's the next action to take.
Yeah, that's correct. The one you'll find anyone in the contact center environment, the luxury you do not have generally is time.
Yeah, and I think those are great points. As we know, with any type of operational excellence kind of initiative, the key is really tightening that feedback loop, right, on performance, and then also tightening the decision and impact loop of making changes and making adjustments so that the same, if you will, mistake or inefficiency doesn't continue for longer than necessary.
Yes.
So, and that's why something like a glimpse is so important for these new contact centers.
Yes.
Wonderful.
And then at the executive level, you also have where, I mentioned before, you have a lot of siloed performance areas, and they all interact with the customer, and the customer sees all of it as one experience. And so for the executive level, you need to be able to see how those silos interact with each other to get the the total experience that the customer receives, so that you have an idea of what's going on across all of your organizations, and then also where they can be hindering each other, and how do you then target and take performance actions.
All right. So something like Glimpse that has the power to model the interactions between the activities is important then, because then it gives you more insight into what's going to happen, what is happening.
That's correct. It also gives you, even from the historical, that you could say, I'm seeing sort of a type of interaction, and there's a small segment that has sort of lower customer values than others. And I delve into that and I say it happens to be a contact center to, say, a kiosk interaction. Well, why is that driving a particular issue? What I get the contextual piece of what is happening there, and then how do I go to fix it?
Yeah.
Cool. So good. So now we're driving reliance on more modeling and more analytics, not just static business reporting, but actual real-time live stuff that sits just beyond on top of your intraday system, whether it's an aging on-premises Genesis system or a modern cloud-based call center product that manage your queues. You did something on top of that really to understand the big picture.
Correct. And to your point, the machine learning algorithms that are happening in the background can point that to you, right? So they will say there's a higher tendency of issues for this chain of actions than others. And it lets you know to look into that versus you having to figure it out yourself.
Yeah,
Over
exactly.
a period of time. Yeah. You may luck into it, but this will tell you that's where you have your issues.